The concept of superdiversity is fairly new. The idea was developed as a way of understanding what was going on in London in particular. So the number of country of origin of the people arriving in London was extremely varied, was extremely fast, so the speed of change was increasing, and also that people were coming from different, more complicated history of migration. So there was the arrival of the asylum seekers, the refugees, not only the economic migrants, not only the colonial migrants in a sense. There was this reality that was becoming more layered, more complex. Superdiversity is a reality that is spreading in Europe in many ways. If you look at the profile of a lot of European cities, not just the capital, also mid-level in terms of size, is changing rapidly. You can observe this process of diversification in British society going in a school. It's often the newer generation where you can see more this difference emergence. And when you go in a school, what you see, and I'm visiting some areas in East London, a school where there were over 70 languages. What was interesting was that the native English speakers were of Afro-Caribbean origin, British, and the majority of the white students were of Polish European origin, and they were non-native speakers in a sense. So this really complicates some of the relationship that we assume as a given, you know, the so-called the white British being a majority. In schools in some areas of London, that's not the case. There is in a sense, race and nationality are no longer aligned as they used to. And it makes us really think about how do you teach in a school like this, but also what does it mean integration? This process of diversification, superdiversity, brings opportunities, but also challenges. Opportunities because there is, in a sense, we are creating a cosmopolitan society where people are connected in multiple places in the world. They have links, they have resources, they can bring on capital, they can mobilize that comes from different sources, but also because the fact of having a diverse society ensures also the capacity to see things from different angles. In a sense, it's almost a kind of as a safety net against this idea of producing very homogeneous and monodimensional vision of the world. There is also challenges though, and challenges sometimes are the product of the interaction between the groups and the histories of dealing with migration, the histories of integration of specific society. If we are in a place where there is a very strict blood-based definition of who is the us, what is the nation, there is very little space for people to accommodate this diversity that they find. They will find increasingly disenfranchised because they don't see where they locate. In contemporary society, which are increasingly diverse and people in themselves bring multiple identity and multiple dimensions. These multiple identities can be either a resource or can be something that basically forces you in a box. It depends very much from society, from the societal value in which you operate. A society may be very welcoming in the sense of someone who has got multiple heritage and use that heritage in order to build links and mobilize their transnational links as something that is valued. And this, for example, was something that is very much part of the discourse in Canada. So there is some very interesting statement by the Canadian Prime Minister in which he points out how being Canadian means to have all these identities. And in a sense, all these identities also serve Canada in a sense in its foreign policy as well. It helps the country to reach out and to build links with other countries as well because we share a population in a sense. But it can become also the opposite. At the moment when, for example, recently in Britain there was the now foreign minister accusing the people that had multiple heritage of split allegiances. Split allegiances means that you cannot be German and British, or you cannot be pro-European Union and a British national, in a sense, a patriot thing. In that case, those multiple identities become much more difficult to live with. Some of the people I interviewed for the Euro Children project pointed out to the fact they were considering changing the name of their children to make them sounding more British. While in the past, they really wanted, in a sense, to capture the fact that they were at the same time from the two countries. So they choose names that were sounding similar in two countries. So they were clearly marking as Polish and British at the same time, for example. What we need to be careful with this is, while it's useful in many ways to accept and operationalize the idea that society is not just about being Somali, be Italian, be German, etc. It's also the risk that not all line of diversification, not all your aspect of your identity play the same role at the same time. So, for example, the fact that you, in a very racist society, let's put it this way, if you are black, your color will affect you in much stronger way than if you are a black person in Somalia or in Nigeria. If you're a Somali doctor in Britain, you're mostly Somali. If you're a Somali doctor in Somalia, you're mostly a doctor. And this is a big difference in the sense of how people feel also treated and acknowledged. So we want to make sure that with Superdiversity, there is a much bigger understanding of this sort of complexity that each of us has in themselves, but also how the place where we live are changing as well.